Welcome to episode 9 of the Caution Free podcast. I'm your host, Colton Sutley, along with my co host, Tim Friedhaber. Today, our guest is Lernerville's track announcer, Big E, Eric Westendorf. To start it out, how did you get into racing?
I was really kind of born into it. My aunt or my mom's uncle is Dick Swartzlander, who passed away last summer. He was late 80s, early 90s, lived a very full life. And he actually got into racing. His wife bought him a race car so that he wouldn't re-enlist in the military. Um, so my parents got divorced in the late 80s. We started spending a lot of time with that side of the family, went to the races every Friday night. And the first time I saw Ed Lynch Jr. and Craig Rankin and Rod George driving sprint cars around Lernerville, I was hooked and I've been addicted ever since. So, like I said, I was born into it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was kind of born into racing as well. My dad drove pro stocks up at Tri-City some and actually lived like 5 minutes down the road from there. And, you know, just like you, I remember as a kid growing up watching Rod George and Bob Felmy battle it out on Tri-City and stuff. So it's
And
pretty
Tri-City is one of
interesting.
my favorite tracks. Merle has done such a great job keeping that place open, and I know it's for sale. And money's tough for a lot of people. I'd love if somebody could take the torch for Merle and keep that place open. It's such a great venue. There's so much potential there, but there's just not. My fear is there's just not enough business right now, especially in this economy, to keep that track sustained on a weekly basis. So, I know they teased the schedule soon. And I know it doesn't take a whole lot for them to cancel on a Sunday night. I hope the fans understand that, Merle and his staff do the best job they can. But on the 50-50 nights, we have, the Thompson family owns a bunch of different businesses, and we have a lot of ways to sustain, if we would happen to lose money on a Friday night. Um, but from my understanding, the way, things are at Tri-City, any Sunday that they lose money makes it that much more likely that that track doesn't open the following Sunday. So, I know we always get a lot of backlash when we cancel, and trust me, nobody hates canceling more than I do. We have like an internal thread, at Lernerville where we go back and forth looking at different weather apps and seeing what else is going on, because we factor in even things like if Kenny Chesney or Taylor Swift's in town, we know we lose X amount of fans. Or when we're racing in September, depending on where Pitt or Penn State are playing, we stop racing on Fridays in August and September because we know once high school football starts. So some of those things that fans don't think about always factor in. Even the Butler Fair, Saxonburg Carnival, any other entertainment options in the area factor into what we do on a Friday night. And like I said, thankfully we have the cachet and, a little bit of a buffer there where if we take a hit on any given Friday night trying to race on a 50-50 weather night, we'll still be okay. We'll get through it. We have the Firecracker and the Silver Cup that, really generate a lot of money for the track. But, unfortunately, Tri-City's on a, pretty tight budget up there. So I hope the fans support it whenever it is open and racing, and understand those decisions when they unfortunately have to cancel once in a while.
Yeah, I remember a couple years ago, the Silver Cup, uh, like a mile down the road, I think somebody said it rained, and that it, it was like I went drove. It's like about an hour 20-minute drive or so, and me and my dad went and knew it might rain and stuff, and luckily Don Martin said no, we're stopping the rain right here,
It is
and
amazing how many times that happens. And it didn't just rain that day. It was pouring like a mile south of the track. And then somehow, I mean, there's always a line where the rain starts and stops, but it's amazing how often it is in very close proximity to Lernerville Speedway. And that's, like I said, we take chances on those nights because, especially now that we have, the live stream. Um, if it's 50-50 weather, we're not going to get a lot of people driving down from, Franklin or the Mercer or Sharon area. They're going to sit at home and, watch, hopefully Dirt TV and Flow and Dirt Vision that night. But we're not going to get the crowd that we did prior to the streaming. And we understand that, but we've made a large investment in, what was originally launched as Lernerville TV with a partnership through Speed Sport TV. And then last season, we took it in a different direction and, branched out on our own. Um, So it's added a different revenue stream. I mean, it's obviously not as profitable as flow and dirt vision because we have a much smaller scope of what we provide, but it's, we've really embraced it and realized that it doesn't, there are times where it takes away from the front gate, but it really exposes a lot of additional people to what we do. And one of the reasons I wanted to launch that, and the Thompson family, gave me the autonomy to run with it and make it happen. And I have family. My cousin, Jake Ayers, drove pro stocks at Lernerville for a long time in the early 2000s. He got a job, got married. He lives on the other side of the state. He doesn't come to the racetrack anymore. Most Friday nights, he's sitting at home watching it on his computer. My mom, same thing. She lived in North Carolina. She was the one that got me hooked on it. And she would sit in her living room and watching people go on vacation and, go to campgrounds. And if you can't be there physically on Friday night, there's still ways to, watch what we do. And it's big for our sponsors. It's big for our drivers and their sponsors. So it's really been a big deal for Lernerville Speedway.
Yeah, and that's I see a lot of people saying about how the streaming takes away from the tracks and stuff, but it's like you just said, it's a great opportunity for people that can't go to the track because they're like 6 or more hours away from the track or however far away. And I mean, I've watched races from out in California and at tracks that I'll probably never get to, and it's amazing to be able to do stuff like that. Just stay at home and watch a track from like 12 hours away, or go to Lernerville and then on the way home watch an outlaw show in Knoxville or
Yep.
wherever.
It's funny because obviously where I announce, everyone's backs to me, and I can see what some people are watching on their phones, and some people are watching Dirt Vision or Flow, and walking through the pits, there's guys that have TVs, in their haulers, and they're watching track conditions, making decisions on setup, from their hauler now instead of having to go the whole way up to the pit grandstands or talking to other drivers. They can see it. The guys that have been doing it long enough know based on what the track looks like and where the cushion is, and they can make those decisions a lot easier now, and keep up with the pace of the program. And we have a lot of speakers, and if you've been to Lernerville, Smokey's not afraid to get on the microphone and yell and scream to get people moving. But and even just like in our concession stands, we have TVs in all of our concession stands. So it used to be you waited until your least favorite division was on the track, or God forbid there's an accident that takes a long time to clear up. That's when people ran to the concession stand. Now you can go whenever because you don't miss anything. You can watch it while you're in line, and it's really been great for the track.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like other than announcing, what all do you do for Lernerville?
A little bit of everything, and I've been trying to step back for a long time. And the Thompsons have been really great to me, to be honest. So I was hired in 2007. Gary Rich Jr. and his dad were the promoters that were hired by the World Racing Group, and I think it was actually still Dirt Motorsports when they first bought the track. That's now the World Racing Group and the World of Outlaws and Dirt Vision. So Gary and I grew up. Like our parents were friends in high school, so we really grew up more like cousins than like friends because we essentially knew each other before we were even born. Um, so then whenever he kind of brokered the sale from the World Racing Group to the Thompson family, and they made some changes whenever they came in, and anytime there's a change in ownership, change in management, some people are very loyal to previous administration and can't get along with the new folks. So we've had in the past 7 or 8 years since the Thompsons have owned the track, there's been a lot of turnover, but they really have given me the freedom to do things, previously as a PR director and now as an announcer. Like starting Lernerville TV, we did our own podcast for a while, and unfortunately, my full-time job, I have 4 boys that play sports. It got to the point where I couldn't stay and do 2 hours of a podcast after a race night because I get up at 4:45 in the morning to go to work. By the time we start a podcast at 12:30, 1 o'clock, I was just running out of gas. And I'm real big on, there's no such thing as good enough. So I had wanted to back off the podcast because I knew I wasn't at my best. And they said, well, would rather have, something than nothing at all. And, I'm the exact opposite. If I can't do it right, if I can't do it 100%, I'm just not going to do it. It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to, the people that have the passion for, what we do. So, if I ever go away from announcing, it's because I made that decision. The Thompsons have put up with a lot of my crap. So if they were going to fire me, I feel like they would have done that 3 or 4 years ago when I, pushed for a lot of things. But they really do treat me like family. It's been a great relationship. So, I help build the schedule, help with, some marketing stuff. I brought People's Natural Gas in. God, they've been with us more than 10 years now. And it was just a simple email. And because at the time I was the webmaster, I did, one of the guys from the World Racing Group, or two guys from the World Racing Group, and I completely rebuilt the website in 2008. And then once we built it, I maintained it. So all the requests that came through the website came into my email. And at the time, Gary was still the general manager. And I fielded all of those marketing questions, and I got a percentage. It was a low percentage. It wasn't like a 50-50 split or anything like the drivers get of the purse, but of any marketing deals that I was able to broker, ticket sales, stuff like that. So a representative from People's Natural Gas reached out and said they wanted to get involved in local racing and to help the fans through the Dollar Energy Fund and the LIHEAP federal program, which helps heat homes, because there's a lot of low income people in our area. And they saw Lernerville as a great family friendly venue where they could really make an impact in our community. And it's been a great partnership ever since. They bring their employees and their families to the track every season. The aluminum grandstands right in front of the press box there, with a grant, they helped us put those in. They've made improvements in our natural gas lines. We had a very old infrastructure. The track was built in 1968, so about probably 5, maybe 7 years ago, they helped upgrade a lot of those systems and everything, and they've just been a great partner. Together we really help a lot of community members, and that's what's most important to me is I love what we do at the racetrack, but there's nothing more important than helping the families in our communities. I was for a long time, I was one of those people that I had $20 on Friday night, and that was it. I didn't have a whole bunch of extra income at the time. I've worked pretty hard to get in a better financial position in my life now, but there was a lot of times where I only had $20 and it was 12, $15 to get in. That's, the changes all I had to get food at the concession stand. And there was actually one silver cup, probably 25, maybe 30 years ago, where I didn't have the money that summer to go. And that would have been the first silver cup I missed. And I was actually at my Uncle Dick Swartzlander's that day. We were, swimming with the family. And he said, "You guys come to Lernerville tonight?" And said, "No, we don't have any money." He's like, "Bullshit, we're going." So at the time he worked for or did volunteer work with Aquinas, and they used to have the peanuts and crunch and munch stand. And he's like, "I'll tell you guys what you're gonna do. You'll save me some energy. You guys can carry all the boxes of peanuts and crunch and munch, and then you can just stay inside and watch the races." So best deal going, right? Until they pull in this box truck with boxes and boxes, because it was an outlaw show. And I mean, it probably took a good hour to carry all that stuff in, but we got to, my cousin and I got to stay for free. And that always stuck with me, because he knew how much that track, meant to us, especially the outlaw shows. So as often as I can, I like to give away things. I like to take kids to Victory Lane and take a ride in a pace truck and do different ticket raffles, because there are some fans that don't have the financial means that I've been able to work and earn my way towards. Everyone isn't that fortunate, so I always try to give back as much as I can, because I know how much that place means to people. And I always talk about how it's dirt therapy, where on Friday nights you can go and just problems of the world kind of disappear for a while the sprint cars are on the track, or while you're rooting for your favorite pro stock or modified driver. It's a nice little escape on Friday night after a busy week. And I know everybody can't afford to go as often as they want, so I always try to remember to give back and help people who are in situations like I used to be in.
It's awesome.
Yeah, you got you gotta love when like tracks and other big local stuff like give back to the communities that they're in, and it's amazing to see.
Really is. And we've had some unfortunate situations where drivers have been injured. Different community members have different issues. And we do benefit raffles. I remember I've got to be really good friends because of it, but when John Flinter's daughter tragically and unexpectedly passed away, the money that people donated that night. And John, if you don't remember when John raced, he was as polarizing as they come. He was at best the 50-50 guy, and it was probably more like 75% of the fans booed and hated him. One, because he was very good, and two, because he was very cocky and arrogant in victory lane. I mean, he was, like if you're into wrestling, he was the heel. Like he embraced being the bad guy. Has a heart of gold, would do anything for you, but on the track, he was one of the most aggressive drivers we ever had. He won a lot of races, and in victory lane, he wasn't afraid to let you know about it. So, but when his daughter passed away, the racing community, nobody withheld dollars that day because they didn't like him as a driver. They saw him as a human being. And I think that's another thing that, we like to do with Dirt TV is try to show that human side of the drivers and put a name to the face. I mean, everyone knows who AJ Flick is, and everyone knows, who Michael Norris and Tyler Dietz are. So we're really trying to do some more stuff behind the scenes and put a name, names and faces to, those guys that, a good night for them is a top 10 finish, or, just making it out of the B main is a good night for those guys. Those guys give their heart and soul to it too. So, we want to try to do a better job with their TV of, getting those guys recognition as well.
Cool.
Yeah, those
So,
guys are the. Oh, sorry,
sorry,
Tim, you
Colton.
can go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead. I'm
Oh,
good.
I was just gonna say, like those guys finishing, like happy, just great nights finishing in the top 10 or getting out to B main. Those guys are the backbone of the sport, and I mean, you gotta support them and help them uh get out there a little bit more, and maybe get some little more sponsorship to help them get through the rest of the season.
I've had people ask before, like, why is a guy like Bill Kiley still race? Like, he never wins. He's never up front. I'm like, he gets to drive a sprint car every Friday night. Like, who wouldn't
Yeah.
do that if you had the capacity, right? So,
Yeah,
and he doesn't drive as much anymore. He's getting, to an age where, he has an opportunity to put other guys in his car. But, if you could drive a sprint car at Lernerville on every Friday night, even if you are a back marker and, you're one of the slowest cars out there, who cares? You're still driving a sprint car at Lernerville.
yeah.
Most of us can only do that on a video game, and guys like Bill Kiley, get to do it for real. So it's not always about winning. For some guys, it's just being able to do it.
So, were you able to meet Dale Jr. when he came to Lernerville?
So the short answer is no. We had a plan. I was actually supposed to, as a track announcer, I was supposed to introduce the Dale Earnhardt podcast. We did have a meet and greet, but again, I have a lot of duties that night or on all nights, but during those big events, I oversee, much to my chagrin sometimes, until I'm out there. Once I'm out there doing it, it's a lot of fun, but I oversee the fan pit pass upgrade. Um, and we had so many pre-sales because of Dale Jr. I put a post on Facebook and I had about 15 to 20 people reach out. So, I mean, we were all in. Trying to get as many people in as possible. And unfortunately, that process, went the whole way through the meet and greet with Dell Jr. and through the podcast. So I didn't get to introduce it. I didn't get to meet him or anything like that. But would have loved to do it. And I had the opportunity when I came up, into the press box. Everything was over, and he was sitting, watching. And I could have gone and probably should have at least gone over and introduced myself, just as kind of an ambassador of the track. But by that point, he was there to watch it, and it's not about me. It's about the experience. And Dale came. He did his duty that night by doing the meet and greet and did podcasts. The rest of the night, he was just there to watch and hang out, and I respected that. And couple different people where how do you have an opportunity to meet Dale Jr. and you didn't do it? It's like he's just a guy, puts his pants on one leg at a time. Would have been cool to meet him, but I've been able to meet and get to know a lot of famous people through racing. I met Kyle the first time he came to the track, and my job that night, I was still the PR director at the time. My duty that night was to take care of his mom and dad, and he's never forgot that. And Kyle has always treated me like gold since. So I brought them up there in the press box all night, fed them, made sure they had drinks, clean bathrooms, watched the races up on the track, got them down to victory lane. And Kyle has like I said, treated me like gold ever since, because there's nothing more important than family. And I picked Tony Stewart up at the airport in Butler one time. I was, kind of the chaperone for Casey Kane when he came out. So, no, I didn't get to meet Dale Jr., but I've got to know. And, um, some of the people's phone numbers that are in my phone, just, if you'd have told me that 20 years ago, never would have believed you. So, um, not going to cry because I didn't get to meet one famous guy. I
Right.
know a lot of people in racing that, just because I didn't get to meet one, yeah, it's no big deal. Something, if I'm met to interact with Dale Jr. and meet him in person, it'll happen at some point. But unfortunately, it didn't happen last summer. But that was such a huge swoon for that event. It's a big risk to run a high paying midweek show during the school year like that. And I think it would have been successful anyway because the Highland Series was fantastic last year. The weather was great, so that's always a big part of it too. But obviously Dale Jr. definitely put that event over the top and probably brought in 1,500, if not 2,000 people that probably wouldn't have been there in person if not for him. So, but that's what that's what dirt racing is all about. The Casey Kanes, Tony Stewarts, Jeff Gordons of the world have really given back to the sport and elevated it to a point where we are now, where we have two national sprint car series. And I don't think without Tony Stewart and Casey Kane and Kyle Larson, I don't think what we're experiencing right now in 2024 wouldn't be possible if those NASCAR guys would have forgot where they came from, and thankfully they never have.
Yeah. Do
Yeah, I
you
mean,
think
sorry, Tim, go ahead.
um do you think that was the most people that have ever been at Lernerville that night?
Um, if not, it was close. So the very first, talking again about Tony Stewart,
Hmm.
the very first time he came to Lernerville, and it was probably 2008, 2009, we actually crashed our web server. There were so many hits on the website that day. And once we got word out, we reached out. We had contacts at KDKA and Y108. So we were able very early that morning to get word out to the local media in Pittsburgh. Either that or the first, second firecracker both had a ton of people there as well. But yeah, it was packed. There wasn't a whole lot of room to park or walk or sit. Just very fortunate circumstances we've been given with some of those things over the years.
So with announcing, what all like how difficult is it to like remember the card numbers and remember you guys have to read all the sponsors too? I know you guys
Yeah, a
probably have
lot of
notes, but it's still
yeah,
crazy.
it is. And I hold myself to a very high standard. Like I want to be like I never. I mean, I have four kids and I've lived here forever. So, a friend of mine, Chad Hill, who used to race sprint cars, he's Ed Lynch Jr.'s brother-in-law, so he still helps Cy. He was just giving me a hard time the other night. He's like, if you'd ever leave Lernerville, you could, go do a lot more cool things and hang out with famous people more often. And like, I'm good. I enjoy what I do. I wouldn't still be doing it if I didn't do it. Um, but yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's really not. I mean, the nice thing about with Blake and Johnny, and I think Chase Rodman's going to do a great job, and James Essex does a great job, but they pretty much have the same core of guys all the time. And I have four different divisions. We have new guys in and out all the time. So, but a lot of them it's the same. They have the same sponsors year to year, same drivers in the division. So the tricky part comes in when somebody comes in late. I'm already in the booth, and I don't have the opportunity to go down and get their sponsors. Because I'm very OCD about things. So if I'm reading three or four sponsors for AJ and Colton Flinner and John Garvin, when a driver comes in and I don't have any sponsors and I'm trying to read what's on the top wing or what's on a door panel to at least get one sponsor out, those kind of things drive me nuts a little bit, but I just try to have fun with it. I know I'm not the best announcer in the country. I hope I'm not the worst announcer in the country, but I try to be informative because I've been in education all of my professional career. I'm a middle school principal now. So you've seen me at the track this year. I'll probably have more gray hair this year than I've ever had before because middle school students are crazy, but I love them. I have a great group of kids, but they're a little bit exhausting. But like I said, I try to be informative and educational because every Friday night, there's people that are there for the first time. So, the things that the three of us know as common knowledge because we live it, there's people there for the first time that they don't know the difference between the green, white, and checkered flag. So, part of my job is to make them feel welcome and educate them try to be funny sometimes, but just organically, I'm not a big over the top, screamer or have like a trademark introduction, like the big national touring series do. Just try to tell the people who's on the track what they're seeing and try to make them laugh and enjoy the night.
Yeah, I think that's like I enjoy the broadcast or the announcers like watching on Dirt Vision or Flow that give information and like kind of teach me some things that I might
Yep.
not know, especially like about like drivers that I may have never heard of that like came from Minnesota down to Volusia to race with the Outlaws or whatever. But
Yep. And sharing, the history that I know, like the third generation drivers that we have, like Cy Lynch and AJ Flick and Brandon Mattis, that, they've grown up in the sport as well. And, it just means for their family to still be racing. But then you have other guys like Tyler Dietz who grew up in the trailer park, across from the racetrack. And, his, he had a dream and a goal and achieved and exceeded them, but he wasn't born into it. Doesn't have a silver spoon in his mouth. He's worked his ass off for everything that he's got. And, he's getting to the point too where he wins so much now. And he does have a little bit of he's very humble, but he does have a little bit of a cocky side sometimes, in victory lane, especially after heated battle. But, the sportsmanship is definitely there, but, he enjoys going to victory lane and, um, every win to him is like living that dream over again. So we have a very eclectic group of drivers, and we have school teachers and policemen and engineers, and then you have some of our drivers who were kind of born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and they don't have to work. They're full time race car drivers, and one's no better or different. One's no better or worse than the other. It's just different. And, it's kind of my job to, let you know where they're from. So that guy's where, I live in New Kensington. That guy's from New Kensington. I never knew that. Or, my dad's a welder and that guy's a welder. That's pretty cool. That's, a lot of times that's how, people become their favorite drivers because they're from the same place or there's some familiarity there with their profession outside the racetrack.
so
So
oh sorry, Tim, you can go ahead.
do you have any like favorite announcers that you like try and like model yourself off of, or you kind of just your own self?
Absolutely. It drives my wife crazy. She can't stand Johnny Gibson. Like every time I turn it on, she'll leave the room. She doesn't like racing in general, but um, I love Johnny. I've got to know him very well. He's a Pittsburgh guy too. His dad comes to races a lot, so I always enjoy, talking to Big John. Blake Anderson and I have become good friends. I love Chet Christner. I've only met him a handful of times, but he just has such an easygoing but organically funny way of announcing. Um, I to be honest, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to James Essex before. We switched to Lucas Oil on the firecracker side, but he's so much fun to work with. Just and not that the outlaw guys weren't. Rick Eshelman was a really good friend of mine. So, losing Dow Carnahan and then Rick has been tough because those were probably two of my biggest mentors. Um, but Rick and Ben Shelton and Dustin Jarrett, they're so much fun to work with. The Firecracker is a lot more fun now, working with the Lucas guys. And I grew up with the World Racing Group. They trained me. I owe a lot of where I am now to them. But there's just a different vibe. With the Lucas guys, it's just more relaxed, more fun. Um, and Austin Lloyd, who's been announcing at Huset's, and he's taking a step back and kind of spending some more time with his son. I thought he did a great job too. So there's a lot of great guys out there, and I just try to you know borrow and steal some things here and there without trying to be a copycat. But yeah, I just like I said, Chet Christer is one that I just really enjoy. I'm always chuckle. He's little turn of phrases, things like that. But it's not forced, it's not fake with him. It's just very organic and natural and fun, and that's what I try to replicate. Like I said, I'm not a big screamer, hoot and holler. There's a couple national guys that I won't mention by name because I don't want to put them down, but like their style is just it's not me. I know that part of that is trained and practiced and intentional, but I just try to be more organic and fun with it.
Yeah, this year with Blake Anderson moving on and Chet moving on as well, I was like, oh
It'll be
man,
different.
two two of my like favorite announcers like are
Yeah,
gone, and I'm like, it's gonna be interesting to see. But I think Chase Robin will do well with taking
yeah,
moving into the high limit role, and
yep.
seen some of his YouTube videos lately, and very informational. And Johnny Gibson, I that's what we grew up on. I
He's the
played
gold
a
standard. Yep.
yeah, I played a World of Outlaw video game from back in like 2002, growing up a ton. And I mean, and when Kyle Larson had him introduce him at the All-Star race a couple years ago with the World of Outlaw intro, it was awesome to see that.
Yep. And I've really been impressed with Connor Wade, and I completely forgot. He had his videos. Excuse me, when he was younger, and he would replicate Johnny Gibson when he was like 7, 8, or 10 years old, something like that. So to see somebody like that work his way up and now get to work with Johnny Gibson and be the infield reporter for the World of Outlaws, and I've been very impressed with the work he's doing this week at Volusia. I think, I think he won't skip a beat, and he'll do every bit as good as Chase Rodman did, for the World of Outlaws on the Dirt Vision side. So I probably got about 5 minutes left. If there's anything, we can clip this part out if you guys
Uh,
need to, or leave it in. I don't care. I'm fine. But
um,
Okay.
I've got some kids coming into the gym in about 5 minutes. So if there's anything else pressing we need to talk about, now's the time.
just want to ask, how excited are you for this upcoming season?
Very actually. We took a big chance a couple years ago when we switched the firecracker from World of Outlaws to Lucas. I told the Thompson family there's a very good chance, and the firecracker was stale. We needed to do something different. I feel like we were starting to lose that event a little bit. Um, so we needed to do something different. And Lucas had been reaching out to us for a handful of years, and it was always very open door. It was never forced, and they didn't want to drive a wedge between us and the World Racing Group. But they said, if there's ever an interest, would definitely be interested in making this a Lucas race. And they came forth with a sponsor. So the Big River Steel has connections to U.S. Steel, which has been part of Pittsburgh for a long time, and the timing was just right and came together. And I told Thompson family, it's like, just so you guys know, there's a very good chance that if we take the firecracker away from World of Outlaws and make it Lucas, they could pull the sprint car races as well. So the Commonwealth Clash and the Silver Cup may not be Outlaw sponsored or sanctioned like they've been forever. And that was a risk they were willing to take to revitalize the firecracker. And unfortunately, that is what came to pass. But the All Stars stepped up and helped us tremendously. The Fast Series, Aaron Fry and his guys, sponsored the Clash last year. And then thankfully the stars aligned, and now the high limit came along. And so to have a 2-day sprint car show was super exciting to me. Jason Shank, when he was the general manager, he and I have been working for a couple years to try to get that Castrol Flow Racing Night in America to the track, and we got that accomplished this year. So you can never bank on like the Dale Earnhardt Jr. PR dream that came true last year, but I think we've really built a good schedule. And then around that, like we always do, a ton of Fab Four racing, is always important, because we wouldn't be there if it weren't for our regular Friday night guys. And, we try to put as many Fab Four Fridays as possible on the schedule around those special events. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Hopefully the weather cooperates. We have a whole lot more scheduled in April than we normally do because of the rained out Stampede. But yeah, we'll be here soon. We have some fish fries coming up the next few Fridays, and then right into racing. So really looking forward to it.
Well,
Awesome.
thanks for coming on, and we'll let you go so you can do what you have to do. And again,
Yeah,
we
appreciate it.
really appreciate you coming on.
Well, I appreciate you guys, and if it weren't for new people coming into the sport, the media around here is not getting any younger. We've got some older photographers that are phasing out, so we've had a really nice influx of young photographers. So you guys doing the podcast, this will be the first time we work together. It definitely won't be the last. Would like to meet you guys on a race night, and
Yeah.
if we can get you guys on a microphone sometime at Lernerville somehow, would love to do that. And anytime we can bring some new faces and new blood into the sport, it just makes it that much more likely that the sport will continue. So appreciate what you guys are doing as
Awesome.
well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to meet you guys. We'll talk to you
Yeah.
soon.
See ya.
Thanks a lot.
See ya.
Well, that was a great interview, and can't say again how much we appreciate Big E coming on today. A great interview, learned a lot. Hopefully we can get him on again sometime. But you know, go
Hopefully we can get
watch.
to the track.
Yeah, I'm going opening night. I'm planning on it unless something comes up. But I'll have to drag you out there. But
Probably.
so watch on YouTube, listen on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts, and like, comment, subscribe, and rate 5 stars and follow on whatever
Yeah.
you're listening to us on, and get out to
And
the dirt track and support the
reach out
local
to
racing.
us. Reach out to us if there's someone you want us to
Yeah,
interview.
yeah, and once again, thanks to Big E for reaching out to us on Twitter and being very cooperative with getting this scheduled.
Yeah.
And that's it for this episode.